Hey everybody, welcome back. Mike from Spectre Comics here. Today we're going to be drawing an original trilogy Star Wars Stormtrooper. It's a cold and horrible blustery day out in Chicago where I live. It's horrible outside, it's snowing, and if we were drawing a Stormtrooper in the conditions outside, it probably looks something like this, which would make it a lot easier to draw, a lot less detail to worry about. However, we're going to actually do a nice line drawing of the torso upward of the body and the head and the arms, and we're going to get started. As usual, we're drawing on a Wacom Cintiq 13 HD tablet. We're using Photoshop Elements 2019. No, I have not upgraded my software yet, but it's coming soon. And we're going to jump right into the drawing. You'll see it behind me as we get started. Now, I'm going to start, as usual, drawing in a halftone underlay skeleton just to get the head, torso, and arms in the right spot on the page. We do this just to kind of model the body and see where everything's going to be, and then we're going to be able to put the Stormtrooper armor right over the skeleton on a darker layer that's above the skeleton layer. So once I get the head drawn in this drawing, we're going to bisect the face so that we can kind of identify which direction the Stormtrooper will be looking, and then we're going to start filling in the detail of the helmet and the armor around this skeleton, as I just mentioned. So this kind of gives us a little idea of where everything is. Now, the helmet is going to be the most detailed portion of this drawing because that's where all the articulation is. The arms and body are relatively simple, but the helmet actually has a lot more detail than it looks like. One of the more difficult pieces of the helmet is below the mouth, the chin area that goes around the jawline. There's a lot of detail in there, and there's not a lot of straight lines, so there's a lot of curves, and depending on which angle the drawing is that you're looking at, it makes it a little more difficult because there's a lot of weird pieces in there with a lot of curves, and based on the angle, it makes it a little challenging to draw. So I'm using a reference image as I usually do, just to kind of figure out where everything is and what it looks like on the angle I'm drawing at. So we're starting here. We're starting to fill in the detail of the helmet around the face, as I mentioned, and we're being really sketchy because the goal here is just to kind of see where everything goes. And I know it's, if you don't draw a lot, it's a little challenging to kind of figure out how to fill in, the detail, but using the guide of the skeleton really helps you kind of figure out where the parts and pieces go, and it's really just practice. You get better as the more you draw, so you kind of figure things out as you go. It's hard to tell somebody when you're kind of explaining how to draw something where every line goes, because it's really feel, and that's, if you notice how sketchy my lines are when I draw, they're really sketchy because I'm kind of scribbling just to kind of see where on paper where everything ends up. And luckily with the tablet, I can be real sketchy, and then I can kind of erase the lines as I kind of more define where the lines go. Now, the helmet's challenging because there's not, because it's white, first of all, and even though you have your nice little rounded triangular eye lenses and the curved mouth, there's a lot of pieces that aren't defined with a straight dark line because it's just curved, molded white of the helmet. So those, you kind of have to figure out where those lines would go because they're not really defined when you're looking at the image, the reference image. And it's a lot easier if you're actually doing shadows and highlights because you can lighten or darken shadows based on how the light's going to hit the surface. But in this case, I'm not doing shadows and highlights, so I'm more relying on the lines that I draw to define the shape of the helmet. So that's a little more challenging. You can see the shape of the helmet kind of forming around the head that we drew as a guide to kind of see where everything goes. Now, the original Stormtrooper from Star Wars is an iconic and recognizable character in the movies and every other aspect of Star Wars. So you see them all the time. You can identify them everywhere. So everybody, just even if you just hint at what they look like, people understand what you're drawing because everybody's seen it before. Even if you're not a science fiction fan or a Star Wars fan, it's just part of pop culture. Everybody would recognize a Star Wars Stormtrooper. So just kind of getting the little hints of the specific aspects of the helmet. The helmet really is like an iconic thing. If you took the helmet off, you might recognize the armor, but it's really just a white suit of armor. The helmet is really what defines it, from the black band over the eyes, the angled, triangular, rounded eyes, the upside down smile or the frowny face that they make on the helmet, the two little knobs at the bottom of the chin, and then the dark center chin piece. and then how the helmet wraps around the bottom of the jawline, as I mentioned earlier. So that's where all the detail and articulation is. There's two little projections around where ears would be, and that kind of wrap into the lower part of the helmet as well. So kind of keeping these little details in mind kind of helps you figure out how to draw the helmet of this character. So I can imagine these helmets, if you were wearing one, would limit your peripheral vision, which is probably why the Stormtroopers are known to be a very poor shot, missing everything they shoot at, but they rely on their numbers to defeat their enemies. It's just overwhelming the enemy. So as I'm going over the sketchy lines, starting to finalize the lines of the helmet and the body in this drawing, as typically I do when I draw, is I start really sketchy and kind of pare down the line and shave away at the line and shave away at the sketches until the line is exactly where I want it to be, and then I start finalizing it. And I'm a huge fan of using line weights to give a sense of depth and detail in a drawing. So you'll always notice me varying my line weights. You know, it gives a sense of, as I said, depth. It thickens and just makes it feel more significant. You know, like it's not just a sketch now. We're finalizing it. We're making it heavy. We're giving it some actual weight. So that's typically seen. You'll typically see that in my drawings, and it really does give a sense of depth, you know, as lines fade out. That's why a lot of my lines taper to a point, and that gives really sense of, it just makes the line a little higher quality, I think. You know, quick story, I never had an original trilogy Stormtrooper. This one I have right here is my wife and I were walking through Comic-Con one time, and there was a vendor selling an AT-AT walker, like a toy. And I never had one. And I kind of commented to her that, hey, I always wanted one of those as a kid. I never got one. And so she kind of tracked one down on eBay a couple years ago. And the guy who sold it to her threw in a bunch of action figures that I never had, including this original Stormtrooper figure. So now I got one. It's actually got in the mold on the leg, it says 1977. So that's about how old this figure is. So I just thought it was kind of funny. You know, you never... If you were playing with action figures as a kid, one Stormtrooper really wouldn't cut it as a foe to the Rebel Alliance action figures you had. So when you needed like 10 of them to make a real battle. Anyway, I didn't mean to go off on a tangent there. The AT-AT walker, even though I got one, it still was missing a bunch of pieces. And so I'm trying to track down the missing pieces. It's got like the cockpit on the top is missing, the gun lasers under the chin are missing, and also the side door on the body. So we're trying to track those down. I think, you know, maybe somebody's selling on an eBay. I'll keep checking until I find one. I'd like to get a complete AT-AT walker. So getting back to the Stormtrooper drawing, there's only in a few colors here. We're talking black, white, and there's a couple areas of gray. You know, on the two areas of the helmet have some gray on it. The black eyes, obviously the black band on the helmet, the black area of the chin, and then there's black areas that are underneath the armor, in between the gaps of the armor. So there's not a lot of color here to worry about, which is good. The little gray adds a little nice detail to the drawing. We're going to add a white layer underneath the black lines, and then we're going to throw a nice little Imperial logo in the back to just kind of fill out the drawing, fill out the background. So I just found a logo online that I could copy, and then just did a series of circles and adding and subtracting away from the Imperial logo, and then just turning it a light tone gray, putting in the background, stretching it up, kind of having it just artistically go halfway off the page. So getting to the end of the drawing, this is what the final drawing looks like. I'm going to go ahead and post this on my Instagram, so if you want to see it a little closer and look at it in a little more detail, go ahead and follow me at Space Misadventures. So if you follow any of my other videos, I'm going to be having a big update on Spectre Comics in the next video. We're almost done with the book. I'm on the last page. I've got one more panel to draw for my final page of Spectre Comics issue 6. Again, if you have seen any of my other videos, you know I've been working on this for a long time, several years. It's been a long time coming to finish this book. And so it's going to be a little nice, it'll be nice to kind of follow the process of getting to the end, because I want to walk through a couple of videos where we show you, you know, how to do some editing, how to do a cover, and just a couple of other aspects of getting the book finished once you're finished with all the drawing, before we send it off to the printer, and we'll do some videos on that. So that'll be upcoming. So make sure you subscribe to the channel for those videos. Don't miss them. Go ahead and like the video, and go ahead and share this video if you have anybody who is a Star Wars fan or is looking to join the 501st Legion of the Stormtrooper brigade. So that's it for this video. Hope you enjoyed watching. Thanks for watching, and we will see you next time.